Hey, everybody, Melinda Russell here again with Women's Motorsports Network. And we are having such fun meeting new women involved in motorsports. My guest today is Michelle Della Penna. Is that right?
That's it. You
I
got
said
it.
it right. And I met her in Charlotte when we were both at the Women with Drive 2 event in Charlotte. Michelle was on a panel, and I was really intrigued by what she's involved in and what she's doing. And, that just to mention, Michelle, we talked about that was such a great event.
Yeah.
The next one is going to be in Phoenix on the Monday and Tuesday after the NASCAR championship. I think they have picked a wonderful location and time for
Indeed.
the next event. And so Michelle and I will both be there. We encourage you to be there if you're a woman involved in motorsports. And there were some men there too, weren't
Yeah,
there?
there was a
It
fair
wasn't. It wasn't just all women. So check that out, Women with Drive 2. I'll put it in the show notes because we both support that organization and the people and what they're doing. So, Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank
I
you.
want you to start, if you would, by telling my listeners a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to find out how you got involved in motorsports.
Sure. My name is Michelle. I live in Los Angeles. I'm a mom and entrepreneur. I do a lot of different things. I've had a couple different businesses over the years. I have three boys, 13, 11, and 6. So it's a full-time job. We have a dog named Frankie, who is the only other female in the house. And yeah, pretty busy just with life and boys. And now our foundation is about 2 years old. So that's, between the kids and that's my gig.
Yeah, and that's, those three boys are a full-time job because as I mentioned to you, I'm actually recording this in Arizona. If you follow me, you don't recognize the background because it's not my normal office. And, she has a stepson, two children from a previous marriage, and then they have a little boy that's two together. And so the schedule she keeps, and now she's opening an autism center in Phoenix because her youngest one has autism. She has a heart for that. I have now have been more involved, and we're going to be, doing more with the autism as far as letting people know what it is. And she just runs all the time. And every time I'm here, I say, I don't know how you did it. She's like, Mom, you had 4 kids. I'm like,
Same thing.
Yeah, but I don't remember that I did all, but I did. I did when I think back. But, as I've gotten older, when I see what you do and they do, I'm like, oh, you just make me tired.
Absolutely. My mom says the same thing.
Absolutely, for sure. So, Michelle, tell me, how did you get interested in the motorsports industry?
I mean, I was born into it. So my father, John, was a race car driver and team owner. He came to the United States from Argentina when he was in his early 20s, and he wanted to be a race car driver. He grew up idolizing Juan Manuel Fangio, who's a huge driver in Argentina, and my grandfather owned a mechanic shop. So my dad grew up around cars. It was his love. And so he moved to the US and started sort of self-sponsoring. He did get some Argentinian sponsors and raced, Formula Fords. I grew up in California, Northern California. So Sears Point, now Sonoma Raceway, was our track of choice. And I grew up at the track. So I was the little girl in the stroller with the earphones on, my mom wheeling me from the pits to the hill to the, all over the place. And I just grew up around it. And my dad sort of took a hiatus from racing because it's incredibly expensive. Sponsorship's hard to come by. And he started a wholesale car company with my uncle. So still in cars, buying and selling high-end cars, and sort of squirreling some money away so that he could start his own team again. And around that time, he met Jimmy Vasser Sr., became friends. He was in the car business as well. And he said, hey, I have this kid who's go-karting and I think he's pretty good. Do you want to get to know him? And so my dad and Jimmy Vasser became fast friends. And Jimmy Vasser raced for my dad. He raced Formula Atlantics when that series was still around. And that was my dad's first sort of experience in team ownership. Jimmy obviously won the championship and went on to IndyCar. My dad stayed in Formula Atlantics for a couple more years, had a few drivers, including Richie Hearn, and won the championship with him. And then right as IndyCar fractured into Champ Car and Indy Racing League, if anybody remembers that, my dad thought, let's go into IndyCar. That sounds like a great idea. And moved the whole operation out to Indianapolis. And so spent a lot of time in Carmel, Indiana.
Okay.
And that was it. We never looked back. My dad's dream was to race in the Indy 500. That was his dream growing up. And so in 1996, Della Penna Motorsports ran in the Indy 500 with Richie Hearn. We came in third. And my dad raced for a few more years and then eventually sold the team, retired, and went into doing a host of other things, but, commentating and, did a bunch of things for Latin America, ESPN. So anyway, I've been in motorsports my whole life. I started driving when I was 11 because my dad threw me in the driver's seat of his 325i BMW and said, learn how to drive stick shift, kid. And somehow I did. But I never had an inkling to drive. I never had an inkling really to be in racing. I grew up, obviously at the races. So I had a variety of different jobs, helping out with hospitality and just sort of helping out wherever I could during my summers of high school and college, helping out around the shop. But I never had an inkling for it. Went to college, did something completely different. Moved down to Los Angeles, built my career, had my kids, and my oldest son, who's now 13, ran a couple of seasons with my dad in go-karting and loved it, but decided that his passion is soccer. So we're also a club soccer family. Doing that on the weekends. My middle son, who's 11, absolutely loves karting, did it with my dad, and it still continues to do it. A few years ago, my dad passed away sort of unexpectedly and suddenly.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it sucks. It's the worst.
Yeah, it does.
But sort of as I was, I have a ton of memorabilia. I have an IndyCar sitting in my garage. I was sort of thinking, what do I do with this legacy? I have these boys who love to kart. I have all this stuff. What should we do with it? And around that time, coincidentally, I was at the track with my son and realized out of a grid of 20 kids, there were only 2 girls. And so I thought, I wonder why there aren't more girls in go-karting. What are the barriers to entry? It's super expensive. Maybe we start a scholarship in my dad's name and, we can help get some more girls. And as I started digging in and kind of just like looking into what that would be to make happen, I started realizing that there still is a big hole in motorsports of women in color, just diversity in general. There's a lot of interest, obviously, now with women in motorsports in North America and all these initiatives, but there's still a hole. It's not equally represented, right?
Right.
So I went through my dad's phone and I called and emailed everybody I ever knew or heard of, or who might possibly know our last name, and said, hey, I'm thinking of doing this thing. Like, what do you think? And Lynn St. James was one of the first ones to get back to me, which is still sort of a dream come true. I have to And she said, yeah, I liked your dad. I respected him a lot. I sorry, got disconnected. I like what you're doing. Like, how can I help you? And so I started to put together this idea of what if I put a foundation together that just created opportunities of exposure, because motorsports is a pretty exclusive sport. It's kind of an exclusive club. And if you don't have access into it, and you don't have kind of like a, nuanced cable, you're not going to be able to see it. It's just, you're not going to be at the Y. You're not going to be in your cul-de-sac playing it. There's just very little exposure. Even people in Indianapolis, I'm learning, kids that are growing up around the Speedway don't really have a ton of access to it, even though they're a mile from the Speedway, right?
Right.
So I thought, well, what if we just sort of like show girls that this is possible? Let's bring them to the track. Let's take them to tour the paddock. Let's let them meet females that are in the industry. And so I somehow, by the grace of God, managed to bring on my executive director, Susan, who is my right-hand person. I can't do anything without her. We sort of assembled this small but mighty team. And Laguna Seca was sort of our first pit stop. They said, hey, for the Laguna Seca Grand Prix, we'll give you hospitality. We'll arrange some tours. You bring the girls. And I said, great. And we hooked up with a troop of Girl Scouts out of Oakland, California. We bussed them out and we gave them a day at the races. We had my dad's car there. We gave them lunch. They got to meet Kara Adams from Firestone. We took them to, Vassar Sullivan. We took them to McLaren, and they just got to see stuff that they would never see.
Right.
And And so that sort of is the first, exposure to a world that maybe they would never know.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, we thought, okay, well, these exposure events are great. Let's keep bringing kids to the track and showing them that this is possible. But what if these girls really are interested in go-karting? How would we get them involved? So we partnered with Sonoma Raceway, who said, hey, we have this karting school. It's great. We'll donate the karting school. We'll donate our instructors. Can you bring the girls?
Nice.
We worked with a couple of organizations, got a group of girls out and brought them out, had lunch, and they got a full day of instruction. They got to suit up, put helmets on. We just held our second one about 2 months ago. We didn't have enough carts. There were so many girls. I mean, it's just such an exciting thing to watch that light.
Yeah.
For them, because go-karting is so much fun. And it's fun when you do it in an indoor karting, but it's really special when you actually get to do it on a track.
Right.
And get the suit and get the helmet. And there's a fantastic driver named Tati Zimmer who works with Sonoma. So she came out, she talked to the girls, and it's just a really special sort of experience. And so we put together these advisory councils. We have Lynn and Beth Peretta as one sort of the industry titans, if you will. And then we have this other council of young women. So we have a couple drift drivers, we have Trans Am. We just have this great group of young drivers who are there to help us create our programs, to come out to events, to talk to the girls. And they sort of help guide, what we do because they're living it day to day.
Right.
But then the other component is STEM, right? Motorsports is all STEM, technology, engineering, mechanics, all of it. So how do we, there's a lot of programs geared towards girls in STEM, but none of it's around motorsports.
Right.
Almost any of it. And growing up in Silicon Valley, there's a lot of computer, AI, things like that, but there's just no motorsports. So we thought, well, how can we expose the young women to all the different opportunities that exist in motorsports? And so we hooked up with the folks at IUPUI, Indiana Purdue University, which is the only university that has a engineering of motorsports dedicated. We met them last May and they said, we really like what you're doing. Let's talk about what we could do together. And so we created this 3-day event, which we're holding in May, the weekend of the 19th through the 21st, so the weekend right before the 500. And we're inviting 25 high school girls out, and we're partnering with giving them a tour of the IUPUI campus. They're going to talk to female engineering students and graduates, and then we're going to give them an immersive weekend around the Speedway. So we're going to take them to Main Street. They get to tour Delara. They're going to Herta. We're going to take them to Fast Times to go-karting. We're going to bring them back to the Speedway. They're going to get a paddock tour. Nice. And then on Sunday, we'll have a couple of meet and greets with some females, and then they get to watch qualifying. So it'll be a fully immersive weekend where they get to sort of dip their toe in all the different facets. And we will be hosting our first fellowship in June. So George Four and Steinbrenner Racing. Julia Steinbrenner has been a supporter of us from day one. She's just a really lovely human. And so she said, we'd love to host your first fellowship. So we partnered with them. And for a week, we'll have a high school student get to shadow Julia, as well as all the other females that work in their industry. So these young girls that are coming to our 3-day program will have first dibs to apply for the fellowship.
Okay.
They'll get to sort of see all the different facets. And so that's, where we're at. There is a wonderful tech incubator called High Alpha based in Indianapolis who also loves what we're doing, and they're hosting a fundraiser reception for us on May 19th. So I encourage anybody to go to our website, check it out. There are tickets still available, and we're also having a live auction that will be online. So if you can't get there, there'll be a ton of memorabilia. We have stuff from Andretti and Herta and McLaren and Indy Speedway. We're going to have a ton of stuff. So, and all of that goes right back to our foundation to fund all of our initiatives. But I've had a soft spot for motorsports. I didn't have a choice, actually, to be honest. If I said that I didn't like motorsports, my dad would have disowned me immediately. So this is what we do. We are a motorsports family, and I really couldn't be any happier about it. So.
Yeah, I've researched, what you were doing in that, and all it takes is that little spark of an idea, and look and see what you've done and how many lives you've touched. And so I've got some questions for you. So how did you choose the 25 girls that get to come? Were they nominated by a teacher, or how did they get chosen for that?
Well, we had, again, I mean, this whole process has been really just guided by people who believe in us somehow.
Right.
So when we partnered with IUPUI, obviously they have a ton of outreach. So we went out, met with Polytechnic University or Polytechnic High School, and we did a presentation, and we met with some of their female students and said, this is what we're doing. We presented it and we created an application. And then from there, as word sort of got out that we were doing this, we actually had a few different schools reach out to us and
Nice.
say, hey, we have a STEM program. We have a motorsports program. We have a robotics program. I think
Okay.
my girls would be really interested in this. And so we sort of put together some different presentations for, I would say, I think 3 to 4 high schools. We
Uh-huh.
went, we presented, we talked to the teachers, and then from there we created an application process. So it was really just kind of first come, first serve. We had 25
Okay.
slots, and once those filled up, we kind of just had to close it. I will, I am happy to report that we did have to close it because we just had so much enthusiasm,
I
and
figured.
hopefully we can, emulate this for years to come. But
Right.
we just reached out to local high schools that were in, within the 5 to 10 mile radius around the speedway, because obviously they need to get there and, the logistics. But once people heard what we were doing, there were a lot of administrators and faculty and teachers that were enthusiastic. So, yeah.
Well, I'm sure. And the thing about STEM, which, it hasn't been, those 4 letters haven't been around that long.
Right.
There's still people that have no idea what STEM stands for. But, those of us that are more involved in motorsports and that, we know that they need to see the value of engineering and math and science and communication and all kinds of things. And if we can reach even younger girls, middle school or younger, and show them the value of those classes and that education in those areas, we're gonna change the world. And it's not just motorsports.
1,000%. I mean, really, our focus sort of starts at 5 to 6. We have programs and initiatives as young as that, because as
Yeah,
with motorsports, especially if you want to be a driver, you need to be starting. My kids were go-karting at 4, which is
absolutely. I know.
but also the older you get, the more, especially that transition for young girls, sometimes they feel like they don't have a place. The voice can sometimes be louder. They
Sure.
start to lose that sort of enthusiasm, and so if we can kind of capture them younger and show them that there is a place for them and that this
Yeah.
can be something that's viable for them, I think we're going to have a greater success. And you're right. It is outside of motorsports, or goes
Yeah.
beyond motorsports as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So how does somebody get involved in the May 19th event? Because I would love to do something there.
Yeah, well, we would absolutely love to have you. You can go to our website. It's the dellapennafoundation.org. Has
Okay.
all of our information. So it talks about who we are. It has all of our social channels. We're on
Yeah.
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I don't do that. I'm a millennial, but I'm a dinosaur. I have no idea what team that does that. And you can just check out all of our events coming up. And there is, I believe, a link to the invite. And a link to our program for the weekend.
Okay.
Everything is up there. And you can also just send us an email. It's super easy on, I think, the homepage. There's like send an info email, and one of us will get back to you immediately. We are looking for, attendees. We're looking for sponsors. We're looking for auction items. If this is something you think your school or your community would like in the future, reach out. Both Susan and I are based in California, but we have the deep roots in Indianapolis, but we're not exclusive to those two.
Right.
This is a national program. So
yeah,
if there's anything that we're doing that resonates with you, please reach out. We would, the greater the community, the greater the impact. So.
Right. And, the more people involved, the more other contacts there are of people who would be interested and willing to help. That's the thing. There's the hub and there's all the spokes, and then there's the wheel of millions of people that
Absolutely.
between all of those people that we know and that we can share this with.
Absolutely.
So, the whole thing that inspired by your dad, which is great. I love that. It keeps his name alive, which I know when you lose a family member, your thing is that you think people are going to forget who they are.
Yeah.
Or that they existed. And And so this is a way for you to honor him and all the things that he did, which I love that about what you're doing. Um, so if people, so yes, you're in California, people should go to the website, and if they're interested in knowing more, or really getting involved, or if they have a daughter
Yeah.
that wants to get involved, here's the thing that I hear from not only the girls I interview but the parents is, my daughter went to a race, she did a try and ride, she loves, the thought of it, but I don't know how to get started.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. I don't know who to talk to. I don't know anybody involved in motorsports.
Right.
We think that motorsports is generational, and most of it is, to be honest.
That's right. Look at the 500 lineup.
Right. Oh, absolutely. So we know that it is, but because we are exposing motorsports to more women, girls, whatever you want to say, and that they go to the racetrack, and now it's not uncommon to see a woman racing.
Yeah.
And so little girls are seeing, what is it they say? If you see me, you can be me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so now we have families who the little girl is the first generation
That's right.
of racing, but the parents have no idea who to talk to, where to start, what to do.
Yeah.
And that's something that some kind of program, even a booklet, something that you could refer to those parents, say, here's what you need to do. Call the owner of your local track.
Yeah.
Find out somebody that races there. Find out, hey, my insurance man is sponsoring, a little boy. Okay. Yeah. Ask your insurance agent.
Yeah.
But they don't think about that.
Right.
We have to tell them, because it's overwhelming. It'd be like me trying to get involved in snow skiing.
Sure.
I don't, first of all, it'd be the last thing I do, because I hate to be cold, but what do I do? Where do I go? And so I just think that what you're doing, is exposing and bringing the Girl Scouts to the racetrack. Some of those girls would never get to Indianapolis Speedway if not for your program.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing that we need to duplicate, what you're doing all over the country, all over, first, of course, the United States, but really all over, is to get the people to the track.
Yeah, that's the plan, right? I mean, I have no interest in owning a team. I have no interest in, I love motorsports. I want to honor my dad. My dad was an amazing connector. That's what he was. People called my dad when they needed help. They called him when they needed an answer. And he was like, oh, I know a guy. And if our organization can be that, if we can be the first stop towards, I have a daughter and she really likes karting and I don't know where to start. If there's an email or a phone number that I can give them or point them in a direction, it's overwhelming. It surely is. If I hadn't grown up in this and my kids were like, I want to go kart, I'd say pick a new sport. I mean, it's just So if, and we oftentimes will get emails from people saying, hey, my daughter likes to kart, or we're based here, or do you know anybody? And I'll say, I think I know someone. Why don't you give them a call? And that's part of why our advisory councils are so important, is because when we can create that ladder, then we can say, hey, we might not be able to directly help you, but we know someone who can. Or we can start to cultivate that talent and say, okay, well, we don't have a race team or we don't have a go-kart team, but we know someone who does. We can create the, scholarship for you. We can get that funding, and then we can give you to the person who really does this. And so that's why our sort of our outreach and the roots into the existing motorsports community is so important. You have all these people who have been doing this for years. They're really good at it. They really want to see more women, especially women of color. And so if we can help bring them that talent pool, then we've done our job, and that's it. So, I mean, it is, I love getting emails from people who say, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. I've got this daughter and she loves go-karting. And we can give them advice. We can give them pointers, or stay tuned, or subscribe, or we have an event coming. We've gotten several people. We've actually even gotten female drivers. A wonderful driver named Heather Hadley is now on our committee.
I know Heather.
She's lovely. And her father reached out and was like, hey, I think my daughter would be great. And she's like a lovely human being. She's been building us out been talking to the girl. She's really lovely. So creating that network where we can communicate, it's open, people can reach out to us. We have no ego about it. We just want to see more girls in motorsports, period, hands down. So however that happens, however we can be of service to do that, that's our job.
So I'm going to throw this out there to you. So I live in Kalamazoo, Michigan. So, we have quite a number of girls within an hour of me. I have a lot of racetracks. So let's just say that we want to expand what you're doing into that area. What would that take? You need somebody in the area that would take the initiative or work with you to get it going there. How would that work?
Yeah, I mean, it sort of depends on what. Let's use our karting development, for example. If we had a track out there that said, hey, we're willing to underwrite the cost. We have X amount of karts, we have these days available, we have a karting instructor. What can you do for us? Then we would start to reach out to local schools, or if there's someone who is already embedded sort of in the local community that could help be our liaison. That's really all it would take. I mean, I'm happy to travel around, and Susan's happy to travel around. We're happy to make it happen. But if we sort of finding the communities of girls is not terribly difficult.
No.
There are obviously schools
everywhere.
And every school in the country has some STEM program.
Yes.
And if we can get them an excused absence for the day, great. Yeah. Working with the counselor, the college career counselor, usually we can get them out and it's not a problem. If we can have someone, an organization, a track that can underwrite the costs for us, then we can make that happen easily. And then we obviously have a network of drivers, females in the industry, drivers, mechanics, engineers all over.
Right.
Finding one or two to come out and talk to the girls, it's not hard. It takes a little bit of orchestration and a little bit of time. But if, there's one or two people that are, really excited about what we're doing, we can make it happen.
Well, and I think in the motorsports industry, when you I just know from where I live, if I reached out to a handful of people that I know and said, hey, let's do this. It reminds me kind of what they do. There's a track called Little Kalamazoo Speedway, and that's right next to the Speedway, and it's quarter midget racing. If you reached out and said, hey, let's do this. It's similar to their trying rides where they come on a Sunday, they try it out and that. But, with a little bit more put to it with some more information in that, because that's how my granddaughter started. They went to a try and ride. My son-in-law came home with 2 quarter midgets. So, I mean, I just think what you're doing is wonderful. I think you need some help so that you can, it can be in, Charlotte area, it can be in Florida, it can be in Texas, it can be in Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania.
Absolutely.
And it really would only take a couple people, ladies, to get together and say, hey, let's see if we can't get XYZ track to underwrite this for the day, and then you feed them lunch and then they come back and they say, I want to try this, or the parents come back and say, okay, help me, what do I do now? At least they have somebody from that event that they can contact and get going.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the point. So we welcome, anyone who's interested or curious or might have a lead for something somewhere.
Okay.
We encourage all communication, and there's really nothing there's very little we would say no to if we have some partnerships. So if it's exposure, if it's getting the girls to know a little bit more, seeing something they never would have seen, doing something they probably never would do, and we can figure out a way to do it. We are a super small organization. Like I said, we've been in business for less than 2 years, and somehow we've been able to do this. So the more sort of community support we can have, and taking, funding, creating funding opportunities, that will make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that is on my bucket list of things to accomplish, and I was in the planning stages right before COVID hit, and then that, kind of put everything to a stop, is to have an event at larger races, not just NASCAR, but NHRA, whatever it might be, to have an event where we reach out to women's groups. Yeah. So you're reaching out to Girl Scouts. I'm going to reach out to the Business and Professional Women's Group, or the whatever it might be in that community, and say, have you ever had an event for your group at the racetrack? And most likely not, they haven't. But to have an event, and not just for those women, but to promote it so that, a lot of women say, oh, my husband's going to the race. She's not going because she doesn't think it's anything for her.
Yeah.
Although she's never been to a race,
Right.
she doesn't really know. And so if we can get them to the track, and just like you're doing, give them a tour of the garage, give them a tour of pit road, let them be out there, where they can be right down in close when they drive or start your engines and they go by. There's nothing. Oh my gosh, I'm a crazy person, but I just love that part. And
It's best.
you have to expose them. It's like the difference between going to the football game and watching it on TV.
Absolutely.
And we have to get the people there, and that helps not only the racetrack, to get new fans there, because the other thing we know, Michelle, is that if we can get them there once, what's going to happen?
They'll come back.
Yeah.
I mean, motorsports, unfortunately, is a tough sport to really enjoy on the TV. It's just, it's hard. It's, and you can do it if you have some understanding, but if that's your only exposure, it's going to be hard to get you excited. And, I was really lucky growing up because I knew I was involved in all the different facets. I was in the garage walking around watching all the guys work on the car. And, sometimes I'd get to sit in it as they would wheel it out to pit lane, like I saw the different facets of it, the business side of it, the engineering, the mechanical. And it's it's a really amazing sport. And so, and really anything that you want to do in the world, you can probably do in motorsports.
I agree.
And from finance, it runs the gamut.
Right.
So just getting people out there, seeing that it's exciting, that there's a place for you. I think that is the mission.
Well, and exposing young girls to the careers, most guidance counselors are not saying, oh, you should go into this because you have a love for motorsports. So many girls that I interview don't even really talk about that they're a race car driver at school.
Oh, no, none. Yeah.
Because the kids don't understand, or they make fun of them, or they say, oh, that's not a sport, or a million other things. And they just don't really share it and talk about it. And the other thing is, a lot of those, and it's not just girls, boys do this too, but they give up a lot of school functions, friendships, that kind of thing to race. And that's how I know the difference when I interview somebody between a diehard, passionate girl and somebody who's doing it for fun. Yeah. And that's great. They should do it for fun. I 100% agree with that. But you can just tell when you're talking to them, and I'm talking, 6-year-olds, because I've interviewed some little girls who just are so passionate about the racing.
Yeah.
And so I just, the more that you and I can get out there and get what we're doing out amongst the masses, to see that motorsports is for women in all areas, from the driver to the, one of my best friends in motorsports is a tire specialist. And she weighs about 110 pounds and she lifts. I don't know how she does it.
Yeah.
She's the littlest thing and she's really good. And she's young, she's still probably in her 20s. But she moved from California to Charlotte and she says, I'm going to do this.
Yeah. Good for her.
That's what it takes is the passion and just, nothing's going to stop me attitude.
Yeah. I think that, I think motorsports in general can be very scary for parents. Racing, go-karting can be very scary because it's something, I think when you're in a vehicle, you feel just completely out of control, which I completely understand. But, unfortunately, if you do have a child or an in with motorsports, you're probably, unfortunately, not going to push your little girl into it. And, I just have, I think go-karting, I think for me is, especially as a mom, is so important for kids to try, even if they don't have any interest in it, because the confidence level, the trusting yourself, you're really competing against yourself,
Yeah.
and the focus, you have to get quiet, you have to go inward. I mean, it's just such a great sort of metaphor for how to be in life.
Right.
And, doing that a few times, doing a season, it is so important, I think, for character development. My son was racing in 105-degree heat last summer. Like, it was hot, and it was collaborating, figuring out ways. Okay, what do you need before? How are you going to manage when you're out there? If you're too hot, what's our plan?
Right.
And it's just, I really feel that the character development that I've seen in karting is really so important. And for whatever you take that to be, a full-blown career or just for fun, I think you really, really learn something about yourself when it's just you and the car out there, really,
Yeah, exactly. And it's amazing to me when I've interviewed, like I said, a 6-year-old, a 10-year-old, even a 20-year-old, the maturity for them is far and above other kids their age. They've had to learn how to lose gracefully, because let's face it, they lose way more than they win.
Absolutely.
Having a bad day, the tire fell off, or whatever. Learning how to cope with having a bad day. And I usually, when I interview someone, I say, what do you do on a bad day?
Yeah.
And so many of them say, well, I just talk to my dad, or I whatever, and then I just race again. Again tomorrow.
Yeah, that's all.
And I just look at some of these kids and I think, wow, I wish I could have been as mature and grown up about things as they are at their age. And I can think of a early 20s gal who is running her own race team. She's getting the sponsorship. She's amazing.
Wow.
And you would think she was in her 30s and had 10 or 15 years experience of whatever. And she's not. And she's done it on her own. She hasn't had anybody really hold her hand. And that's, to me, there's things about motorsports that people don't understand unless they get involved.
Absolutely. And adding on to what you're saying, I mean, you have to want it. It is not a sport that comes easy. No. And there's nothing about motorsports that's easy at all. You have to seek it out. And if you want to do it, you've got to hustle, and, you've got to figure out, how to make it happen. You got to be scrappy, and at the end of the day, your talent will speak for itself,
Sure.
Even people who come from families with a lot of money and a lot of means, if you don't know how to drive, if you don't have that talent, if you don't have a good demeanor about, racing with other people and good sportsmanship, that all comes out. And so I am always really impressed by, the motorsports community, because it is really filled with, although it is an old boys club, which we're trying to change,
we are changing it.
And we are changing it. Amen. The caliber of people who just love this sport, they love it. There's no half-assing it in motorsports. You are all in, or you're not in at all. So
Exactly, for sure. And and really that's true about anything you do in life. If you really want to be successful,
you have to be all in.
You have to be all in, because you can't do something, excuse my language, half-assed and expect it to just carry you by your pants. You've got to do the work. And that's the thing. I just, girls are out in the garage with their dads working on the car. They're doing this. They're doing things that other kids their age are not doing. And that's a lot about what makes them more mature. And I tell you, every time I interview somebody, I walk away or come away with an appreciation for the sacrifices that parents do. And it's not, or husbands do, or whoever it might be. Sure. It's not always kids, but just the sacrifice that they put in, the whole family is part of it, whether they want to or not.
Yes.
You know, the one little girl says, yeah, my little brother just takes all of his cars and sits in the dirt, you know, and that's just what he does. And there's just so many sides to the motorsports industry and being a part of it that unless you hear about it often, or you're a part of it, you do not understand how it grabs you by the heart.
Yep.
And it won't let go.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. I love the family aspect also of motorsports. I mean, that was, you know, of all the sports, you know, things my dad could have done, you know, our family was always there. My grandparents, my uncle, you know, we were all there. And we all had a place, you know, and and everybody else was. I mean, I was talking to someone else earlier this week. I'm a little bit older than the Andretti kids, but you know, Marissa and Marco, they were running around the track. They were tiny little kids running around the track. You know, I grew up with these people. They're all running around and they're grabbing dad's leg and hugging him and kissing him before he goes out. And I mean, it's just a really beautiful, and the wives are there and the spouses are there and the grandparents. And it's just this like amazing, warm, cozy feeling that everybody has a place, everybody's included. And I just want to see it more representative of the world we live in.
I do too.
I feel like the more we can just kind of find a resurgence of love and passion and doing that by getting the young girls and the younger generations involved and passionate about it, the better off the sports can be.
Well, and that's why you do what you do. I do what I do. That's why Lynn and Cindy do what they do, because it takes more than just the four of us. It takes our networks and everything to do that. You know, I watched Race Hub, I think it was last night or the night before. And one of the things they were showing was the guys were talking, like Joey Logano and Kevin Harvick. They were talking about one of the best memories that they'll take away from motorsports is when they won and their child came running up to them, got in the car and did the ride around, you know. And I've seen several of those in person. Luckily, I was at enough of those to watch them in person, and it gets you right here, you know, a lump in your throat. And then when you see those grown men who you think are big and tough and they're race car drivers, you know, and then they say the most memorable moment is not winning the Daytona 500 or even winning a championship. It's when I was able to take my child and hold him up in victory lane or take him around the track. And, you know, there's not many sports that you get to do those kinds of things.
Yeah, it's really special. One of my the running joke when I was a kid was my dad would always ask, where's Michelle? Where's Michelle? Where's Michelle? Because as long as he knew I was somewhere in proximity on the track, he was good. You know, he'd be heading out to qualifying. He'd be like, does someone have eyes on Michelle? You know?
Yeah.
And it's just a really wonderful thing to know that, you know, your family can be there doing this with you. And so I just really couldn't be happier doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. So Michelle, tell me, social media. Are you on Facebook, Instagram? Where can people follow you there?
Yeah, we're also DPM Next Gen is our handle, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and follow along. We're always doing posts. We have, you know, we usually have at least once a week or once every couple of weeks, we have like a female in the industry do a takeover. And check us out, follow us. All of our information is always sort of disseminated through there. So you'll find if you don't check the website every day, it's fine. You'll find out what's happening on social media. We do our, you know, all of our updates, and we also connect through those channels as well. So if you find our email, send us a message, and one of us will get back to you. But we'll find everything about everything that we do on all of those channels.
So May 19th to the 21st is Indianapolis.
That's it.
It's going to be here before you know it. And so
packing my bags.
Packing your bags. Put a sweater in because you just never know. I just got to Arizona here on Sunday, and the weather has been beautiful. And so I'm tired of the cold and all that in Michigan. And so I'm so glad to be here. I'll be here for another week or 10 days, but Yeah, because Indy seems to always be windy. It's windy in Indy. I don't know why, but it is. And so, but what a great town. And Carmel, by the way, my cousin lives there.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Been to that area, so it's a very nice area. Been there several times. In fact, my cousin lives there. He's the same age as I am. We're both 67. His sister lives in Greenwood, which is south of Indy.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So last year I said, I'm going to the Indy 500 for the first time. And so I asked them if they would like to go. And they've lived in the Indy area forever.
Sure.
And they'd never been to the Indy 500 until they went with me last year.
That's crazy to me.
It's crazy to me too, but they're not really race fans.
Sure.
And, but the spectacle, I mean, I think the Indy 500 needs to be up there with Niagara Falls and some of those things. You need to see it once.
You do. It is otherworldly. I mean, it really is overwhelming in all the wonderful ways. It's a really great event, and it means a lot to a lot of people. And so I think experiencing that is really important. It's a legacy race. It means a lot to the city. It means a lot to drivers. I mean, people grow up dreaming of that. My dad did. So it's an important race. It's way up there. And I'm excited to be in Indy during the month of May. It's unlike
no better place to be. That's for sure.
That's right.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Michelle, this has been a real pleasure to hear from you about what you're doing. Reading it is one thing, but hearing it from the horse's mouth, shall we say, is much better. Yeah. And being able to discuss motorsports and women in motorsports, which is what we're passionate about, both you and I. So, thank you so much for being here. Do you have anything that you'd like to share that I didn't ask you about, or that you just now remembered about?
No, I mean, check out our website. I would love, we're the bigger the community that we have, the more young girls we can, help. That's the goal. So if you feel like you have something you can offer us, if you feel like you have, something, someone, you want to host an event, please reach out. The bigger network, the more help. So
absolutely.
Thank you for having me on, giving us this platform. We're excited. I would love to see you in May. We'll hopefully you can make it to the fundraiser. We would love to have you. And let's just keep on the mission. It's,
absolutely.
It's a worthwhile endeavor. So thank you for having me and giving me this opportunity to talk to you and all your listeners.
Oh, anytime. And, you're welcome back anytime. If you're having an event or you have something you want us to partner with you to help share and get the word out, that's what we do. So I'd love to be able to do that with you.
I would love it. Thank you so much. I'll take you up on it.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.